All right, lads, we now know the Champions League last 16 is set. It's confirmed. The group stage is done and dusted. It's in the books. And we're going to look at ranking the favourites, looking at the teams who we think are going to go all the way and lift the trophy at Wembley Stadium this season. Nick Mendola, going to come to you first, mate. The group stage is complete. What were the biggest surprises for you, favourite moments, anything that really stood out from these teams that eventually made the last 16?
Yeah, I'll go a little British with a side of German. The Jude Bellingham emergence is. I remember talking with you guys 3-4 years ago, and Birmingham City's retiring his number, and he's like 11 years old or whatever. Not really, but you know what I mean. And we're all like, all right, and like to see someone show the commitment and not falter under the hype. I just think he's been incredible. Joe, I'm sure you'd have more to say about that. The second note is Manchester United, and I don't know how they're not the biggest disappointment in the tournament. And the third note, and it's a soft spot, but Buffalo, where I'm from, sister city, Dortmund, winning the group of death in a year that they maybe haven't looked their best in the league, and in a country that screams Bayern was pretty great. I loved it.
It was pretty great. And I think obviously Bellingham has been amazing. And as an England fan, I'm really trying really hard to pump the brakes on this Jude Bellingham train, but it's already left the station and it's heading towards its final destination, it seems. I also, Nick, obviously Newcastle's win against PSG and what they brought to that group of death.
Wearing black.
Yep, exactly. Injuries aside, they would have made it. It feels like they really would have made it to the last 16 if they had any luck whatsoever of injuries. So that was pretty cool. And Man United finishing bottom of the group the way they did, that has to be one of the big storylines. And I think, Andy, segueing to the other side of North London, seeing Arsenal come back into the Champions League and then taking care of business kind of just reminds us, again, their level, probably where they should be at, and how dangerous they could be in the last 16, right? So same question for you as I posed to Nick there. What kind of takeaways and what kind of thoughts did you have on the group stage?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Arsenal spent 6 seasons outside of the Champions League. They are synonymous with that competition, right? Obviously, they've won it in the past, but they're just one of those clubs that were kind of always there. They were part of the furniture, as you guys say over there in England, I believe, Joe. Yeah, they were impressive. They had a nice little group to get through. It set up nicely for them and allowed them to just kind of grow into this competition a little bit. There's 6 years, a lot of players on that squad not been in the Champions League before at this point. So to get that experience and kind of learn on the job as they've been doing the last couple seasons under Mikel Arteta, they were very impressive. But I go back to Nick's points. I think he hit the main two. Jude Bellingham, there is a massive hole for the title of best player in the world right now that is up for grabs with Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo kind of aging out of that part of their career. We know Erling Haaland is up there. We know Kylian Mbappe is up there. And I do think Bellingham has put himself into that conversation because he's someone who seems to have an effect on every single game. And that is, I think, the hallmark of the best player in the world. You don't go missing for 2 or 3 games at a time. You affect the outcome of every single game. And he seems to be doing that. And then Manchester United, 4 points from 6 games, 1 win in a group that had Copenhagen and Galatasaray. And I believe they got, a point against those two? They got all 4 points against those two sides and then beaten twice by Bayern. But just, man, we have talked about it week by week within a Premier League context, but you put it then into Europe and see how far behind everyone else Manchester United has fallen, and you realize, they're not just underperforming this season. They're not just doing bad in the league. They've not just had a few bad results. Structurally, from the top all the way down to the bottom, there are massive problems with the club.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's been disappointing, right, for the Premier League. I think in the Champions League, Nick, we've had 2 that have won the groups and breezed it in Manchester City and Arsenal. And then obviously both Newcastle and Manchester United finishing bottom of their groups, and they're not in Europe at all. And that's going to hit the Premier League's coefficient and may actually end up impacting Manchester United and Newcastle for next season, because it looks like right now the 5th place in the Premier League may not be a Champions League spot for next season, given that Italy and Spain have performed so well. But there is a chance if, one of Liverpool, Brighton or West Ham wins the Europa League, Aston Villa wins the Conference League, and Man City, as we maybe expect, could go very far and win the Champions League again. That could improve, but how disappointed are we, I guess, with the Premier League and their performance of the teams in the Champions League this season?
So I'm extremely disappointed with Manchester United. I don't think it's emblematic of the Premier League. I'm not disappointed, for the record, with Newcastle at all. It was a brutal group. The matchups weren't great. It's your first time back in Europe. Honestly, I don't want to say just happy to be there, but I've been telling you guys since July, it's going to be sweet when we finish third and win the Europa League. And that didn't happen, but that's also fine. Because right now, I think you're seeing how fun it is to have your team in the Champions League now that there are bona fide 8 or 9 competitors for the position. That it's not the big 6. When we look at a Villa, when we see what some of these teams are doing in the Europa League, Manchester United, it's even if you are Andy and not giving them the benefit of the doubt, and they've run out of them, I still think it's shocking to see them play as poorly as they are. And it's shocking to see a manager with Erik ten Hag's reputation make the choices he's making. And it's shocking to see the players he has playing the way that they are. And for Man United to shock us, given how low our expectations are, I think is even more damning. So I can't put it on the Premier League because I think Chelsea, Spurs, Villa, maybe even Brighton would have come out of that group. And Man United finished dead last. Yeah,
that's a great point. That's a great point. Andy, when we're looking at ranking our favorites, the top few teams that we think can actually win this, it's kind of a couple of brackets, right? Of maybe 3 teams at the top and then 4 or 5 after that. That could go all the way. Who have you got your eye on, mate, to win it all?
Yeah, it's going to be a painfully obvious answer. Obviously, Man City have looked pretty good in the Champions League this season. They're struggling a little bit in the Premier League, but they'll figure it out. Bayern Munich just look like a machine. Again, in Champions League, they're having to battle a little bit for the Bundesliga title for the first time in a while. They will probably get there. Spoiler alert, it's Bayern. And then Real Madrid as well. They have that look that Real Madrid get in the Champions League where it almost doesn't matter what else is happening anywhere else. They're going to show up on Tuesday night, on Wednesday night, and they're going to be ruthless. And they know how to win that competition. They know how to manage stage by stage, round by round, and get into the latter stages of the Champions League. So those are 3 obvious choices, but I think you would be pretty smart, pretty safe picking a winner out of one of those 3.
Nick, we agree with that, right? And I think the group underneath that is the most intriguing because it feels like this season, as we mentioned, those 3 teams there, City, Real, and Bayern, as good as they are, they do have some quite serious flaws that we've seen pop up in league play and even during this competition a little bit. So who are the teams that could shock us and maybe be a bit of a dark horse to win this?
I can't believe I'm going to say it, but Arsenal. In a game, it reminds me it's a different style of play completely, but it reminds me of watching Liverpool a few years ago when you're saying to yourself, I don't think they're going to win the league, but this is a tournament team. This is, you don't want this team over 180 minutes, let alone 90. Arsenal can beat anyone in the world over 90 to 120 minutes. And look, the draw is going to continue to be favorable to people. When it's not top, when it's top heavy, and then there's the gap like this. We've already seen it. Multiple teams are looking at their path and saying, heck yeah. And I just, if you get a little lucky, we could see a funny team, and I don't know if Inter Milan counts the last time they did it, but that surprised me. So I think Arsenal is this year's Inter. I could see that.
I could see that as well. Also, another team to watch out for, Real Sociedad, have been really good in the group stages and just kind of gone under the radar. Very tough place to play away. And I think that's a team that just caught my eye in the group stages that I was like, I knew they were good, but they are probably further ahead in their project than I expected. So Champions League is always going to keep us guessing. We'll have you covered on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com with all the latest heading into the knockout rounds of this competition. As we said, some clear favourites, but it's pretty wide open after that. So we're going to be set for plenty of shocks and delightful results around Europe as we head into 2024.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.